Hey everybody, I'm Matt Valley. Welcome to episode number 133 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Well, hey, check it out. It's really cold here in Dallas, Texas, as I'm recording here today, so I'm all bundled up. I must say, I'm kind of embarrassed. It's like maybe 15 degrees out. I live in a big drafty house, so it's freezing in here, but I'm embarrassed because I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. So what happened to me over the years? My guest today, Bryson Cwick, is actually in Chicago, where it's really cold today. And look at him; he's just fine. Well, you got a jacket on, so cool. So let me tell you about Bryson, my new friend Bryson. Very very excited to have him on the program. Bryson is a business development manager for a company called Orchard Insights.
Insights, yeah.
Orchard Insights, and you're kind of a boomerang, right? This is your second time around at Orchard. And Orchard is a really interesting insights consultancy that's really focused on measuring what people actually do rather than what they say they do, which, if you've been in insights and research for any period of time, is a big challenge. So great to know that they're helping to solve that problem. Now, Bryson is definitely a researcher, like capital R researcher. He's got lots of experience. So after graduating from UC Berkeley, plenty impressive there, right? Molecular biology, neuroscience, cellular biology, all that kind of stuff, hard sciences, right? Bryson actually took or held a number of positions at real science-based companies handling research roles, and somehow got the bug for data analytics, and then got sort of more in my world and took a position at Foot Cone Building, FCB in Chicago, the advertising agency, as a director of strategic analytics. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And has found his way to Orchard Insights. Super interesting background. Now, of course, there's a music connection, a little different from my own. So Bryson played the bassoon, if I'm not mistaken,
Just a little different.
in the college orchestra. Who doesn't love a bassoon?
No, I love it.
You love it. You love it. I love to listen to a bassoon, so that's cool. But what really blew my mind in talking to Bryson, you just wouldn't believe it. He's actually also a tattoo artist with a following on Instagram. So go figure. We got research, we've got bassoon, orchestral music, we've got tattooing. This is tailor-made for the Rock and Roll Research Podcast. So welcome to the show, Bryson.
Hey, I appreciate that, Matt. And I'm super excited to be on the podcast. I listened to a few episodes, and it's really cool to see a bunch of researchers doing cool stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. That's what's kept me around, right? So many interesting people, yourself included, and also Susan Griffin, who's our mutual friend that introduced us. So shout out to Susan for that. I'm very grateful for hooking us up. So thanks for that, Susan. All right. So before we get started, Bryson, I do want to say a couple of words about this company called Magic Mind, which has made my life better over the last 6, 8, 9 months, something like that. I've been using this Magic Mind regularly, daily when I can. It's a mental performance enhancement shot, if anyone's ever seen that. It's got all sorts of really good natural ingredients in it, 100% verified and endorsed by doctors, including my own. Makes me feel really good, gives me a nice calm mind, eases my stress, improves my focus. And so I really like to take this before we really jump into the podcast. But if this is something of interest to you, of course, let me know. I'm happy to chat about it anytime. But even better, you can go to magicmind.com/RNRLT, and get a really, really nice discount. So if you're kind of sold on this and say, yeah, I want to jump in, 48% off of a subscription. You want to dip your toe in the water, give it a shot, 20% off a one-time purchase. So Be my hero, help out this company that's helping me out. I'm going to go down the hatch and then we're going to jump in if that's cool, Bryson.
Sounds good. Yeah, I actually tattooed last year at the Telluride Mushroom Festival. So very
Cool.
familiar with tinctures, and they're always good to calm the mind and get those, get that nervous system just relaxed. So
Yeah, super cool. See, you know the science behind it. I don't. I just know that I feel good when I take it. So good. All right. Great stuff. Now let's talk. Let's talk, Bryson. I always like to start with research. And you've got a plethora in your background. The hard stuff, the soft stuff, all the good stuff. So tell me where your interest in research first came about and give us a little sense of your journey.
yeah, I mean, as you said, like I first got into research mostly just through science, wanting to be, physician or, researcher with a capital R, and always loved finding just the root of the problem. And the only
Sure.
way to do that is through research. So just spent a bit of time in college started working out at a bioremediation lab. Um, and it was national lab above UC Berkeley, and we worked on things like the BP oil spill and
Yeah.
recreating like pristine environments.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So tell me a little bit about the BP oil spill and what your role was in that, because that's
Yeah, it
love
was
to
really
touch.
interesting. That as like in 2008, there was a an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
Well, now Gulf of
Yeah,
Mexico. And the
whatever it's called now.
Yeah, whatever it's called now. And we had a bunch of, with that, environments become less pristine, right? So
Right.
we were sort of tasked with reintroducing methane, reducing bacteria back into the environment to try to get it to that pristine, sort of, in the wild look. So
Sure.
that was the goal of that project. Really interesting. You don't think about what are the unseen things of the eye that like really can impact uh, environments.
Sure. Sure. And then you transition somewhere. Where does the analytics part come in?
Yeah, with that analytics, we or with the LBNL and all the different sort of neurophysiological startup company that I was at for a little bit. All of that analytics was we had to know analytics, MATLAB, a little bit of Python, uh,
Yeah.
measuring behavioral analyses. It was kind of par for the course. So picked it up there and then moved out here to Chicago and realized that I love just analysis. So it was finding jobs and things where I was maybe doing a little bit more of that,
Yeah.
talking to people maybe, and research and qualitatives and all of that kind of blossomed from there.
Yeah, sure. That's actually one of the things I like about the advertising industry is I found over time they've often done a good job of drawing people into that industry from totally different disciplines. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious, how you discovered like foot cone building, for example.
Yeah, I mean, they reached out to me actually to join with their healthcare division. So I feel like with everyone now wanting to be more digitally like savvy, especially these
Sure.
brands, some of these older style CPG houses and healthcare companies, I think they just realized that knowing what's going on digitally, like or in
Right.
people's feeds or online, is just more important. So with my stint at Orchard and some of the just analytics that I've done, it was a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Now tell me about Orchard.
Yeah, Orchard. So Orchard is just what we do, or at least we are a startup about maybe 8 or 9 years old now.
Okay.
I joined 3 or 4 years ago, and then came back. So
Yeah.
we're what we do and what we mine for are what we call real world behavioral insights. So measuring people's reactions, comments, likes in feed, and
Okay.
uh, basically spitting out a holistic one number score that we call the Orchard Index. And
Okay.
it's off of a decade of norms in the space. And we test white space, or we test concepting, or product marketing, product positioning. It's a
Yeah.
really it's sort of a tool or a experimental platform to better understand like what consumers are actually doing.
Yeah.
um, so yeah.
Yes. Super cool. And do you work typically with like CPG companies, or what is sort of the profile of the industries that you're operating in?
Yeah, we work with CPG companies. A lot of our preferred partners, the P&Gs, Church and Dwight's, larger sort of
Sure.
houses. We also really like working with some of the niche brands too, to some of
Yeah.
those projects. Did a lot of work last year with Allagash, and
Ah,
love a niche brewing company. It's
yeah.
here in
The
Chicago.
Allagash White is just absolutely delicious,
Ah,
I
you
must
can't beat it.
say.
Yeah. So working with those guys was great. And it's just, the people that come to us are really just, they're researchers themselves, right? They want to do some type of innovation, and to do innovation, you have to understand your consumer. So that was something that, at least last year when I joined at the end, just kind of going through all of our clients and reaching out to people. It's been great again so far.
Yeah, yeah, super cool. All right. Okay, so I have to ask. Now, we did talk, had a little pre-chat about tattooing, and
Yeah.
I got my first tattoo like 30 years ago, right? When I thought I was like some rockabilly superstar, like the next Buddy Holly or something. Um, and back then I mentioned it was like Sailor Jerry tattoos. It was much less diverse. The
Mm.
art world of tattoos was much less diverse back then. And now it's just exploded, right? There's
Yeah.
so many different styles and all sorts of things. But it's just really interesting to know that you're a tattoo artist. So where did that come about? And tell me, how that sort of fits into your life.
Yeah, most tattoo artists, and you're totally right, Matt, like the last sort of, for like 10 years, and especially since COVID, like, tattoo artists have exploded. Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
styles, the variety of approaches, it's really become an art form, and it's been really fantastic to see. And um, some people, most of those tattoo artists grew up drawing, right? Like they're like, I love drawing. I used to scribble on the sides of my notebooks. I mean, we all
Yeah.
we do that, but I really liked. I wasn't like that. I actually just realized that to. I love tattoos, and I loved getting tattoos, and I loved
Yeah,
sort of. I mean, it's pretty much it's a very intimate experience. You have to trust your tattoo artist.
for sure.
And I really like that. Like I like that personalized experience. So I started teaching myself to draw right after COVID, and I just worked on it. And uh, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was sort of just like feeling a little like corporate life was a bit tough for me, and that was hard to recognize that. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what I should do? I'm gonna tattoo. So I just quit it, started an Instagram profile, started putting out my artwork there. And I was living in LA for a little bit at the time, and
Sure.
just took off. It has been doing really well, and has become one of the things that I look forward to heading into the weekend after working at Orchard. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that's great.
yeah.
So I know you had mentioned before that you do like some guest appearances at tattoo
Yeah,
shop stuff.
guest shops. That was like that last year was a big year. Just it's really fun to you may want to see like, oh, I want to go travel to New York, or I want to spend
Yeah.
some time in a new city. And what better way to explore it through meeting artists? And so you just reach out as a guest artist. You travel maybe once or twice every other month, and you can. So I traveled to New York last year a few times, Portland, which is a great They have the most
Yeah.
artists per capita in the
I
entire.
got one of my very first tattoos in Portland, Oregon. Many years
Statistically,
ago.
that tracks. Uh, I also tattooed at the Telluride Mushroom Festival, which is like a pop-up event,
Yeah,
largest mushroom festival in the country.
sure.
Very cool, very fun, and it's just a different way to explore life and live. And I've really been enjoying it. It's been fast, like just fast and furious, but I've loved it.
Yeah, totally love it. I totally love that you've kind of got a foot in two different worlds. I kind
Yeah,
of
it's like
can
conflicting
identify with that.
identities
Yeah.
sometimes. I'm like, oh, I'm a tattoo artist, and then also I'm like talking to P&G about an innovation project they want to do.
Yeah.
So it's so different. The experiences feel very, very contrasting at times.
Yeah. 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 It's really cool. So tell me just a little bit about your artistic style.
Hmm. So the style that I have is actually hand poke. So I do hand poke tattoos. I learned from a few artists in LA.
Hmm.
And the style is more line work or sort of light shading.
Sure.
Very different from like trad shops where you have you get your Sacred Heart tattoo or
Yeah, your flash, your flash board with yeah.
yeah, exactly. So do custom tattoos and I have a few different designs for people. So they come into the shop and we chat through them. Maybe I draw a little bit more if they're like wanting it to fit to their body. And yeah, we
Yeah.
just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I just love it. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So
How many
um
tattoos do you have? Do you have just the one from 30 years ago or
I have a full back piece that good
nice?
friend of mine. He's got a shop in Yorba Linda, California. I trusted him to do that for me, which is really cool. I get several others.
Yeah,
So
very
yeah,
cool.
it's been a lifelong adulthood thing. So,
It's nice, collecting different pieces. Some
yeah,
clients like spend time, um, they like have one piece that they really want and they've been like thinking about it. And so they come to me and we really work on it. And some people are just heavily tatted and they're like, I want you to, I'm collecting fish
yeah,
from different artists. Like for me, for example, I have like 30 fish tattooed on me because I love the underwater themes and like
yeah.
biological, kind of going off of my roots of being a scientist. I'm obsessed with all of these like old school 1880s scientists like Ernst Haeckel and
Yeah.
Flossfeld that used to do these really cool illustrations. So a lot
Mhm.
of my style is based off of that too.
Super cool. So you mentioned they're sort of feel like contrasting worlds at times, but there's got to be some sort of connective tissue there. So, um, is there anything you've learned actually from, let's say, tattooing that you've applied to your work life or vice versa?
That's such a good question. It I will say, Matt, it's starting an organic social account where you're creating content. I mean, it makes me sort of admire what you do for the podcast. Like a lot of people, I think you start a hobby and you really love something and you spend time and you devote yourself to building that. And then I
Right.
feel like in corporate America, there's a threshold of wanting to turn that to commoditize it. And I think for me, like tattooing, it was just very interesting to create something that was for myself and just based off of something that I felt was artistic. And
Mhm.
um, starting an account and building content is so hard. It gives me, it's realizing that like you do have to authentically engage with your consumers,
Yeah.
like the people who follow you because they like your art. And
Yeah.
it just makes me realize is the challenges. It's like twofold. I feel like one, I've realized that there's so many challenges that CPG companies have to face when they're trying to market to you a non-durable good.
Yeah.
Whereas like for me, it's easier to engage someone who likes my art. So it's
Right. Right. Yep.
interesting to like, I'm trying to, it's like I've learned that I do need a marketing funnel to like drive people to sign up for a tattoo session.
Yep.
And then vice versa, it's like I've learned that to authentically engage with your consumer or to authentically engage with your audience, like you do have to understand who they are. And oftentimes the sort of esoteric or like niche audience is what ends up being your biggest super fan. So like it's really important to identify those personas and those people because they're going to advocate for you.
Yeah.
And like you should give back to them in as many ways as you can. Uh, it's very interesting to like translate the learnings across both my jobs.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I draw another parallel to music. Back in the late 80s, playing in a metal band with my brother uh in Minnesota. We playing a show. It's like, hey, we're gonna play at First Avenue this weekend, big metal show. You go to the malls where all the metalheads are hanging out and you hand out flyers.
Yeah.
Now it's so much more complicated. It's all social media and like you say, building a funnel and you have to really be careful, think about your copy and which
Yeah.
platforms and this sort of thing, and how do you get the file?
It's so
It's very time consuming.
yeah, it's so true. Like
Yeah.
back in the day, and I think a lot of old school artists, like tattoo artists, still think this way, like, I just need a physical book. Or I just need
Yeah.
I'm gonna post some flyers in like my local coffee shop.
Right. Yeah.
But like that's translated to now like, oh, I'm actually gonna create an audience on Instagram.
Right.
I'm going to call this persona Dave and put a, 25 to 45 age range, and maybe they're regular coffee attenders. Maybe they love niche coffee and
Yeah.
coffee roasters. And so you build that audience and then you launch your content against that audience. So, the translation is still there. It's
Yeah.
just everybody lives their lives digitally. So
Yeah.
might talk to them that way.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. All right.
Yeah.
So let's get back to insights for a second. So Orchard, doing something a little bit different, right? And you came back to Orchard.
Mhm.
So obviously there was something that was hanging there for you. So I'm curious to know from your perspective, as you sort of look out into the future of insights, what do you see there?
Um, yeah, I mean, I did come back to Orchard because in my time at FCB and also just broadly speaking, the oftentimes a lot of companies are focusing on building a research pipeline from market research, consumer testing, validation work, and have built these sort of ad hoc processes that work for them.
Sure.
And the foundational methodologies are traditional research, right? So like a closed research environment.
Right.
Where you're talking to people, asking them questions and having them sort of answer. And like, I think sort of our challenge here at Orchard and my challenge to convey to people who are interested is who's taking a survey anymore.
Yeah.
It's like really the push that I sort of want to spark in people. Because I think maybe 15, 20 years ago, market research really relied heavily on that without,
For
as
sure.
said, nobody's living digitally. Everyone's physical collateral is enough. And I think now it's shifted a bit with everyone living digitally. I think those behaviors need to be, you know, analyzed and looked at a bit differently. So that's, where I sort of see the future is moving a little bit away from traditional methodologies and
Mhm.
trying to find new and interesting ways to engage and learn about authentic real world behaviors in a digital method. So that's what I would say is like the future of research.
Yeah.
How that comes to
Yeah.
life, it's tough. Like research methodologies are always going to be there, and there are benefits to talking to people. So that's what I think it is. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's answers your
Yeah.
question.
Here. I think a lot of people would agree with you, especially with the additional context of data quality issues and
Yeah.
all of these things with respect to surveys. It makes a lot of sense. We need more outlets to get accurate feedback. So
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
I'm on board. I'm on board. Okay, so Bryson, you mentioned Instagram is important to you, and but before I forget, do you want to share your Instagram handle in case somebody wants to check out some of your
Yeah,
work?
sure. It is workbench period tattooer. So workbench tattooer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of media, we all have, like you said, we're all living digitally, and so those digital media need to win our time, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious to know what media is winning your time these days.
Ah, man, it's such a tough one. I would have said TikTok, I think before,
Yeah,
but now I think I'm enjoying a lot of the new TV shows that are coming out, and I say I got to turn to TV still, the old classic. For me, it's probably Severance. Like I love, like a lot of Apple TV is really
yeah.
just so engaging. I'm a sci-fi nerd, so like the idea of Severance of that plot of just not having like any memory attached to the work that you do is just such an interesting concept to me, and I'm captivated. It's such good TV.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Anything else? I'm not familiar with that one, by the way. I'm going to
Oh,
check that out.
it's really interesting. I watch all these well, I am starting to work a little bit in pottery. I don't need to add anything else to my plate, but I really love YouTube for that. I mean, I feel like all these platforms are adopting short form videos, which I'm not sure how I feel about. Like LinkedIn is doing it, all these short form 10-second spots are,
Yeah,
I like the longer form content. I mean, so YouTube,
me too.
yeah, it's tough to, I think maybe, yeah. And so for me, definitely like watching how-tos on like pottery thing, and just something where I'm learning again,
Yeah.
like being a researcher at heart, it's so nice to learn visually, and like YouTube has got to be it, I think, if I had to really pick it.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Now, see, I have to be clear on this. So if you're studying pottery, you're not adding anything to your plate. You're creating the plate, right?
I like that. I like
But bump.
oh
So
my, that pun. Wow. Yeah. There, Matt.
okay, all right. So we've gotten this far, Bryson. You are well familiar with the name of this podcast, right? It is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, and we have the only music we've talked about is the bassoon, and this is a shame. So we're going to correct that right now. So we're going to get into it. This is my favorite question, and hopefully you've had a chance to think about it. So Bryson, you're stranded on a desert island, right? You've got three albums, records, whatever word you want to use. It causes confusion. But okay, so three albums of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are they?
Oh man, this took me this question. I knew it was coming. Um, I I've thought long and hard about this, so I think it's a bit of an eclectic approach. But "Rumors" by Fleetwood Mac, got it.
Ah, yes, classic. One of the very best-selling albums of all time.
Yes, I mean, I think it just has to. You could just need the good vibes. Probably, I think "The Man Machine" by Kraftwerk is probably has.
Kraftwerk, who actually I'm seeing in Dallas coming up very soon. So,
They've been going on a ramp. I saw them in LA at Disney Hall randomly. They were fantastic.
dude, I can't wait. I love that
You're gonna
choice.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
They're good. And last one, it's a bit of an outlier, but Whipped Cream and Other Delights by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I have to do a quick visual for those that are watching here. The classic album cover. I don't know if you've ever seen this. There's this band Soul Asylum from Minneapolis. You see that poster down on the bottom?
Yeah, I see it. That is it. Wow.
That was their take on it. It's called Clam Dip and Other Delights.
That is amazing. Wow.
It is, yes, it is. It was a very, very well done parody of the Herm Alpert cover. But yes, that is a classic, classic album. And I'm actually surprised that nobody in 133 episodes, no one has said Herb Alpert because that one is really a classic.
It's a classic. I mean, I grew up on that. My mom was I mean, my mom's Mexican, and so, she would always put that on. It just felt, I don't know, it feels like home to me. So that album is like my go-to. I'm happy that I'm the first one. Surprise.
Yeah, I love the choice. I love the choice. Cool. All right, this has been a great conversation. I want to remind people, if you're interested at all, this Magic Mind mental performance shot, awesome for me, can be for you. If you're interested, give it a shot. It's magicmind.com/RNRLT. 48% off a subscription and 20% off a one-time purchase. So check it out. But Bryson, man, this has been such a great chat, and there's so many threads I'd like to continue to pull. So we have to see each other soon.
I agree.
Uh, Maybe over an Allagash White, perhaps,
That would be
uh,
nice. That
and
would,
chat some of these things further. It's just really fascinating, some of the things that you're doing.
I appreciate that. I mean, thanks for having me on the podcast again, Matt. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk soon, Bryson. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll.